The Nürburgring, even the name of it sends a thrill of excitement down your spine. This video is to tell you about what you can get up to when you're not actually on track. It'll also give you some advice about how you can make your trip even better. It's worth hanging on all the way through to the end because we'll give some great advice about travel to and from the ring and what you might do about accommodation. When you're not farting around on track during tourist farting, you will find you've got time on your hands, and there's so much to see and do in the area that it'd be shame to miss out on it. We'll also include a little bit of fine dining along the way.
Well, we've arrived. We are at the Nürburgring. We'll check out the museum, we'll see what we can see trackside, and hopefully there's some interesting stuff going around. Let's go.
Ringwerk. It's the museum from the Nürburgring, and it's a must-do. You've got to allow 3 or 4 hours to go around it because it will keep you really entertained. At the moment it's €11.50 for an adult ticket, but there are other options, sort of family and such like, and I think you can pay for an extended ticket that gives you some laps on the go-kart ring that's underneath. I think we should have done that, but we didn't. Anyway, when you get inside, there are some phenomenal vehicles with phenomenal history that you can get really close up to and have a good look at. My particular favourite thing though was that there was 4 multimedia displays. When I say displays, there were sort of activities. I think the one I liked the best was the bus tour of the track. It was this sort of immersive, you're sitting on a bus and it feels like you're going around but actually you're not moving at all. It was absolutely great, and if you've got kids with you, you would love it. There's a 3D video, they say 4D because I think they squirt a bit of water at you and it gets a bit smoky, of a 24-hour BMW race, which is probably one of the best of its kind I've ever seen. There's another one which is called Green Hell, harking back to the F1 days when it was a long trip for a long time in a lot of greenery. The Green Hell one seemed a bit odd when you first go in because there seems to be just sort of lots of plastic trees and a little bit of plastic foliage. But once it puts you in the dark and it gets going and it keeps swivelling you round, it actually gives you the history of the track, which was originally made in 1927 and is very, very good. It really is something that you want to go and have a look at. Probably the least interesting, but if you've got kids with you, probably the most, is the Motormania. It's where you ride around the circuit and you have a light gun that you shoot at automotive things as you're going around, and you can have a competitive go for your whole car to see if you get the best score of the day or as individuals. No matter what, it was really hard to actually walk out of the museum. There were things you wanted to go back and look at. It's a must-do. If you haven't been to Ringwerk, you haven't actually been to the Nürburgring yet. Of course, the main star of the trip is the track, and you're going to want to see as much of it as you can, not just from the driving seat, but from all of the viewing points that are around it.
Well, we've arrived at Bruen, which is one of the key viewing areas for the Nordschleife. There seems to be something going on. Here are some passing cars now. Seems to be something going on, although according to the calendar it's not a track day, so maybe it's a test day or something, or a private day or something like that. But we're going to stroll up in this direction northwards and hopefully get a view of the Carousel. It's a bit of a trek apparently, but we're going to go and find out. From my research, there are a few decent viewing areas where you can just park up and get yourself on a nice little stroll to watch trackside. I'll put a little map over now. Just found it online, it's not my map, can't take credit for that, but it's proving quite handy because if you're trying to look at the Nordschleife on Google Maps, you'll find it's not really mapped out very well. So you need to kind of cross-reference a Google Maps as well as another map that somebody's very kindly put together. But anyway, let's go and see if we can view from Carousel. Sweating bullets. Starting to think we're going the wrong way, but I think we may be approaching the infamous Carousel.
All of the viewing areas seem to be free, so you can get around and see quite a lot. And if you're not actually participating in Touristfahrten, then it's a great idea to go to the entrance to it, where all of the cars access the track. There's a restaurant bar there called the Devil's Diner, and it's not actually that expensive. It has a phenomenal viewing platform of the entrance, and this is probably one of the best free car shows you could possibly imagine. It's really a great place to spend an hour or two if you're not actually going on track. Once you start moving further afield from the Nürburgring, you'll find that the roads seem to be exceptionally good. Most of them are in really good condition. There's very few speed cameras, there's not even a lot of traffic, and frequently you can find roads that have phenomenal sets of hairpin bends, one after the other, going down one side of a valley and up into the other in really scenic areas. And along the way you'll find some very interesting villages and some very interesting things to go and look at. Let's have a quick look at them now.
What a spectacular day it was yesterday. Starting off with Bergels, which was absolutely stunning. It was like a fairy tale castle, but one with actual interesting history. It was actually subject to a siege in the 1400s. It's a proper castle, obviously, with some additions to it over the years too, but they're all like that. The way it was situated in the hills was just absolutely incredible. It was pretty packed, so it must be quite a popular destination, but I can highly recommend it. Then we went on to Boppard, which is another lovely town along the Rhine River, which was absolutely stunning as well. Really nice and cute. Must be a popular tourist destination for the Germans too, because that was again quite busy. We also called in at Cochem, which is on the Moselle, which is a smaller river that feeds into the Rhine. So the roads in the area are absolutely stunning. So even if you come into this area and you're not going to drive on the track, it's actually still a brilliant area to visit, and I can wholeheartedly say some of the roads are the best I've driven. So it's another hot one. We're calling in on a waterfall, Waterfall, which is very near to where we're stopping in the accommodation. As suspected, very popular among the locals. Let's make tracks back. Come on, holding up the job.
Without going far from the Nürburgring, Nürburg itself has a really great castle, and it's well worth the walk up to it. And even though there's some dodgy stairs to get to the top, the view from the very top of the tower is nothing but breathtaking. Take a look. At your own risk. Didn't say you had to build your own stairs.
Well, for €3 you'd be mad not to visit Nurburgring Castle. It's going under some restoration work at the moment, so the toilets are unfortunately closed, so that's our next stop. But the views are absolutely stunning, highly recommend. Free parking, €3 each, enjoy it. Melbourne Ready 90 M3, wow, love that.
And having built up an appetite, on to some fine dining.
Piston Klaus was delicious, just as everybody says, and very reasonably priced too, which was the biggest surprise because they've got a pretty captive audience and it's an internationally renowned restaurant at this point. But no, it was, the three of us ate for €60. We had pizzas. Piston Klaus pizza was delicious. I didn't go for steak on a stone. I just thought sweating onto a steak wasn't my idea of a nice evening, but maybe next time, maybe when it's a bit cooler. At Pinocchio's Pizzeria, which is another highly recommended spot that we'd read about beforehand. The pizzas were incredibly generous. I wouldn't say the quality was quite as high as Piston Klaus, but it was still absolutely delicious, and in terms of cost, about the same. And of course, sitting outside on the warm evening and watching the cars go past was a lovely, unforgettable experience. Really enjoyed that.
And of course, we did say we'd tell you a little bit about the travel and some good ideas for accommodation. The direct route to Nürburgring from the Dunkirk and Calais area takes you straight across the top of Brussels. It's notoriously busy and it's not really pleasant driving. However, if you do take a southerly route, you can see a lot more. And either on the way there or on the way back, you could call in at the Waterloo Museum. It's not cheap at €23, but it's well worth going to see. Talking about accommodation, a lot of people stay in the cheap hotels, Ibis and such like. Our recommendation would be book an Airbnb, especially if there's a few of you. An Airbnb will cost you the same as one hotel room, so it's a lot cheaper and there's a lot more facilities. And if you think about it, you can position yourself somewhere where you can see something a bit different. On our way out, we actually stayed in Dunkirk, and during our time in the Nürburgring area, we stayed at a little Airbnb in a town called Hoffeld. It actually had accommodation for about 6 people, and it was obvious that people who'd been using the track had been there before, simply because they'd left their YouTube subscriptions still signed in on the TV, which was quite amusing. It was a lovely place, and as it was on Waldstraße, you can tell it was on its way to the forest, so it was actually delightful. And only about 6 miles away from the actual main centre of Nürburg, so on for the Nürburgring was not a problem whatsoever. Another thing I'd also mention is everybody seems to go straight to the Eurotunnel, and which is great. It's very accessible and it's very quick, but it's not quite as much of an adventure as going on the ferry. And when you weigh up that frequently you can get a ferry for about half the price if you book in advance, really does look like it could be a great option. So our recommendation would be look at using the ferries. They only take about an extra hour, but it is more entertaining and a little bit better sitting in a lounge rather than sitting in some kind of cattle truck with cars in it. The final thought is about fuel, and I know we'll all fill up at Tesco's before we get to Dover, but there's really no need to be scared of filling up abroad. In actual fact, it was frequently a lot cheaper. A bit cheaper, let's give it that way. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, why not subscribe? See what else we get up to. It's not all holidays with us, you know.